This is Dave from What Fly Swing, and I'm happy to have Steve Smith back on the podcast. How's it going, Steve?
Great. Good to be back, Dave. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah, I'm excited to talk today with you about. I'm always excited about fly tying because I think that flies and fly tying, especially for trout fishing, like it kind of doesn't get more important than that, right? What you have on the end of your line. But then you hear people talk that, well, maybe flies aren't that important, right? Maybe these Euro nymphs that don't really look at things. So we're going to talk about some tips for people to maybe have a selection of flies for trout in your area. But give us an update on Smitty's Fly Box. We've the last episode we did has been a little while. We talked about, what you have going. What's been happening in the last year with you out there? Anything new?
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on with Smitty's. We actually opened up our website you can buy flies on there. We're not just a subscription box.
Oh,
And that's going really well. It's a great option to pick up a bunch of flies. We've got a pretty good selection on there, great price. And then we started doing a fly of the week. Every week we send out a new fly that we announce that you can get it for a great deal if you buy a bunch of them. And then we also do a tying bundle associated with that fly. So if you see a fly that you like, one of the flies of the week, like this week we're doing a Royal Stimulator, we put together a bundle for like $20 and you can tie a bunch of them. So it's like a really easy way to just, like, if you see a fly you want to just tie it, just get a little bundle. We take out all that guesswork of having to, what hook, what thread, and it's all put together in a nice little package. So we started doing that. That's been really popular, and we post that every week on our Instagram page. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming up for our tying boxes in 2026. We're going to do in our intermediate tying box. It's going to be all signature patterns with my patterns and Courtney Bailey, who also works. The two of us in the shop. We're going to just focus and tie all of our flies that we've been working on over the years. So that'll be a lot of fun. If you subscribe to the intermediate fly tying box, a lot of fun patterns that we're doing. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming up. Tying a lot of cool flies. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. So that in the intermediate box, is that a fly, just flies, or does that include the materials?
Yeah, so we do a fly box where we actually just send you flies. It's not tying materials at all, but we also do 2 fly tying box. We do a beginner fly tying box and an intermediate fly tying box. And these are just a different pattern every month, and we send a bunch of materials to tie that fly of the month. So the beginner box is geared a lot of classic flies just to help people get started, learn the techniques, kind of walk you through that. The intermediate box will do more, like I said, signature patterns, more intricate patterns. So it's a great way to just kind of keep the juices flowing. If you're through the winter months, you just want a new box of materials to come every month and try different flies. It's really a good option, and it's only $25.
And so like you said, the Royal Stimulator. So if you saw that you want to tie a Royal Stimulator, you could get a box that just has all the materials to tie like a dozen flies or something like that.
Yeah, that's our weekly fly for the month. Our monthly boxes, they're going to be loaded up even more. You're going to be able to tie 25, and you get all the other goodies with it in the monthly box. As far as we send tips, we send a newspaper and some of those things along with it. So the monthly box is kind of a more in-depth approach. The weekly that we started doing, the fly of the week, is just a real quick material bundle, a little bit smaller. Cool. Maybe tie 10 or 12, whereas the monthly boxes, you could tie 25, 30 flies. So
right. And these are set for, is it mostly focused on trout fishing, multiple species, that sort of thing?
Yeah, mostly trout. There is a lot of crossover there. If you're, a lot of warm water type stuff that'll work for bass. We keep that in mind. We have a lot of subscribers in the Midwest and kind of down south, not a lot of trout waters, but so we keep that in mind and try to mix it up a little bit. But most of it is trout focused.
Yeah, mostly trout. Okay. And I think today we're going to talk a little more about some of the flies. And I always think, because we have some people that are beginners, listening, we got some people that have more experience. But at the end of the day, these flies that are even beginner flies probably will work for anybody, right? If you talk about, say, the top. Yeah. What would be like in your area? Let's talk about that. You're in kind of the Logan area. What are the species you're fishing for down there? Are we talking browns, rainbows, a little mix?
We have a little bit of everything. So we've got a lot of browns in a lot of the streams here. We've got a lot of stocked rainbows, and a lot here and there in a lot of the ponds and a lot of the rivers, actually. Then we have a lot of native cutthroat trout too, which is kind of our marquee thing here in Cache Valley, Logan, Utah area. the Bear River cutthroat, Bonneville cutthroat. Yeah, that's their home native waters here. So
Hmm.
a lot of people target those, and they're really, really beautiful fish and cool to catch.
Yep.
So,
So it was at the Bear River cutthroat.
it's funny you asked that.
Yeah.
The Bonneville,
Yeah.
there's a little
Bonneville. I've heard
debate.
about. I've heard
The
about the
Bonneville
Bonneville.
cutthroat, my whole life I've been, they were Bonneville cutthroat trout, but the last couple of years, a few people have said, well, they're Bear River cutthroat trout. So I'll be honest,
Oh, right.
I don't know much of it. If
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
different, it's kind of a name thing here and there.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is that names are, can change too, right? You could
Yeah.
have a new subspecies and they might lump a species. You never quite know, right?
Yeah. And someone's going to correct me on this podcast. I'll get an email or something somewhere,
Yeah,
but I've
right.
always, I grew up with them here on the Logan River. Those are Bonneville cutthroat trout.
Right.
Because, we had the Lake Bonneville covered this area millions of years ago.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the story as far as I know.
Yeah, Lake Bonneville. That's right. Okay. So yeah, cutthroat are great. And cutthroat are cool because they're really surface oriented, right? Lots of dry fly on the surface.
Yes. And that's kind of how I grew up fishing. I grew up fishing the Logan River with an Elk Hair Caddis.
Yeah.
And honestly, that'll work today. In the summertime, you go up there any evening, and those cutthroats, they love to sip little dry flies.
Yeah.
They'll hit humpies and attractors and all that kind of stuff too. But a good Elk Hair Caddis or a stimulator really is about all you need in the summer months up here.
Okay, and they're not too protective. Some of the flies I think over the last year I've been using some of these like the missing link, right? I think that was a fly that was. It's really you probably know that. I mean, essentially it's a similar thing. The elk hair is kind of your traditional, little dry fly, and you can tie it in different sizes, right? But basically, it depends on pressure, right? If you have a certain amount of pressure, do you have to go smaller? Do you have to go different fly? What would you say if you're fishing? Yeah.
Yeah, occasionally, they'll get picky. They'll get pressured a little bit. A lot of people fishing it every night. So we'll switch around. Usually if fish get picky, I go smaller first. And then from there, try different patterns, like maybe a little X caddis if we're in a little bit slower water. Or like you say, those missing links. I like these little tent wing caddis work quite well. Even little foam caddis. They'll eat small chubbies as well. I have a fly called a chernubby that's just a small chubby, and that works well for a dry fly too.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to talk and just give folks listening maybe a selection of flies. So let's go into, and I want to start trout. We'll probably mix this up a little bit. If somebody was coming, let's take a newer angler to trout. Somebody was going to put together a general selection. Maybe they're going to fish the Logan area where you're at, or maybe they're in some other area that have browns or rainbows. What are a few of for trout? Like don't you guys have a box too that's kind of a trout selection box, or are you guys still doing that?
Yeah. So with our fly box, actually, you tell us where you're fishing, and we send you a selection of 12 flies.
There you go.
For that area.
So let's do that. And again, you probably can't do this on the spot because I'm sure there's a lot of, but just we'll kind of work through it a little bit. So I know a stream that I went to recently was kind of in southeastern, probably not too far from where you are. It was kind of almost Nevada, Oregon, kind of right in the border there, Idaho. Kind of in the desert. It was a small stream, and it wasn't far from, I'm not sure how similar it was to the Logan area, but if I was going there, do you need a name of a stream or just a general type of stream? What would you need to get some information on what
we ask, we don't get too in depth, but we just ask people when they sign up, like, where are you fishing? What are you targeting? And a lot of people will be specific. They say, hey, I just fish this river all the time.
Okay.
So we'll do a little bit of research on our end, and we supply flies all over the U.S., so we have a pretty good idea of what
you do
works well.
Well, what about
research?
What if we say just a name that's really known? I'm not spot burning, but the Oahe River is a river that's kind of Oregon, Idaho border near Boise. Very popular little stream. If that was where we were going, or maybe even some places in Boise, what would that selection look like if you had to say some top flies?
Yeah, the Boise area. Again, and I have to do a little bit of research because I haven't fished the Oahe this year. But, I could do a little bit of research. But I would say this: when we talk about western trout waters, you're going to have a lot of the similar hatches. They're going to vary here and there, but you're going to you have your stoneflies, your mayflies, your caddisflies, and your midges. So now within those three categories, what time of year and how are we matching it? The summer months, you have your stonefly hatches, usually early summer, caddis hatches throughout the summer, blueing olives in the fall and the spring, and PMDs throughout the summer. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of these hatches are happening in a lot of the same, and a lot of those same bugs are happening right here in our backyard.
That's right.
So So I would say, for a beginner that just needs a selection of bugs, you start
Hmm.
with dry flies.
Yep.
Again, you can't go wrong with the classics: an Elk Hair Caddis, a Parachute Adams, a stimulator. You're probably going to want a little grasshopper, and
Hmm.
then maybe an attractor fly like a wolf or a humpy. That's a very good selection. They're tried and true patterns. They work just about anywhere there's trout, if you're fishing fast water, slow water.
Yep.
And then you got to start talking nymphs underneath. It's hard to beat, really, a dry dropper,
Yeah, that's right.
really, most times of the year.
Yep.
And I will tell you, this is kind of how fishing has changed a little bit over the last decade, I would say. The introduction of a lot more tungsten style jig
Hmm.
nymphs as droppers. And I fish a copper quill Perdigon as a dropper, honestly, about anywhere. I
Yep.
catch them on the Green River. I catch them on the Madison. I mean, I catch them right here on the Logan River. And I would imagine they would work well on the Owyhee River as well.
Yep.
And where you're working riffles that are waist deep, um, nothing much deeper than that. You're just dropping that fly 18 inches, 2 feet, two and a half
Yep.
feet below a dry fly that floats good,
Yep.
and just getting it in the seams. And those tungsten jig style nymphs, they sink really fast. So when you start talking underwater type stuff, I really simplify it. You have your classics: hare's ears, pheasant tails, copper johns. But now I find myself fishing these tungsten
Yeah.
jig nymphs under a
Even
dry
more.
even more. I don't, use an indicator and a split shot as much
Yeah, you don't.
anymore. It's
Yeah,
just
because
simplified.
the dry dropper is cool because it's still indicator fishing, right? And the
Hmm.
great thing is they could take the dry. So
Exactly.
why? I guess there's some situations, I don't know, where would you want to use just a regular indicator, right? It seems like the dry dropper is nice.
Yeah. I find myself, if you're float fishing in bigger water, like the Snake River or the Green River,
Oh
now
yeah.
you got to get down. You're fishing runs that are, 6 feet deep, maybe 7 feet. So that obviously the dry dropper is not going to work in there. And it might be slower water, and then you got to set up a more detailed nymph rig, and really work on that drift in some of those situations. But like I said, most of the smaller streams, if you think about the riffles you're fishing, they're not going to be more than waist deep. Most of them
Yeah.
are maybe knee deep,
Yep.
waist deep. So a dropper is just enough to just get down.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not
So
trying to necessarily get down on the bottom with the dry dropper.
you're in the strike zone. All
Yeah.
you need to be is within that 6 inches to 18 inches off the bottom, and so that dropper can kind of get in that strike zone, and you can hit all those runs and pockets and behind and seams behind
Yep.
boulders and things very easily. And it's kind of like your dry fly fishing. I mean, you're still
Yeah.
casting. You can, and
Yep.
that's really the fun part of it. So I tell people that, if dry dropper fishing, I know a lot of people fish that. It's no secret or anything, but
Yep.
very effective. And the
Yep.
tungsten bead with a slim bodied fly,
Is a
it'll
key.
get down and get vertical very quickly.
Yeah. Get in the zone.
Whereas a brass beaded nymph, and it might just not quite get down as quick. So you can get a boom, a
Yeah.
drift very quickly in those
And
seams.
you're fishing.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. So
And I always joke, if you would have showed me one of those Perdigons,
yeah,
25 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. I would have been like,
right.
that's a silly fly. It looks like nothing.
That's right. I know. We were talking on a recent episode. We are talking about some old flies, and he was talking about his dad, how his dad used to use these awesome old flies, and he said, "Well, why don't we use these great old flies? Like the Griffiths gnat is a good one, right? The Griffiths
Uh-huh.
gnat." And his dad was like, "Oh, I don't know. We just kind of the new stuff came. We started using the new stuff, right? But that old stuff still works, right?"
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do the same thing. I open my box. I'm like, dang, I don't fish those flies anymore. I'm like, why don't I? I
Yeah.
mean, they used to work, but you get hooked on something new, and you get kind of stuck on what you caught fish on the last time you went
Right.
out. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, so there's a few dries. We got some nymphs. What about one thing, kind of a traditional style wet flies? Do you guys have, is that something you ever get asked about? I know that's kind of specific, like fishing. People I know are doing the trout spay thing, so you're hearing a little bit about that. But do you get many requests for wet flies at all?
like the old traditional wet, like the
Yeah,
old
like little,
coachmans and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah, like a, or even like, yeah, that could be the bigger, or maybe even like little, what's the typical wet fly? Like the, Davy Watt and the team of wet, I'm trying to think of the name, like a soft tackle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Soft tackles.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah.
sell a lot of we sell soft tackles, and I don't get a ton of requests for like traditional wet flies. It's funny when people like we post this fly of the week,
Yeah.
and I'll mix it up. I'll put in something old traditional, and I'll
Yep.
put in something that's kind of new, but whatever's all over social media. And then that fly also, like we did a tungsten jig nymph a couple weeks ago, kind of a newer bunny style tungsten jigs.
Yep.
In the last couple of years, those have got more popular. Man, those just flew off the shelf
Yeah.
because it's like this trend.
Right.
Um, so it's we don't get
Yeah.
as much requests for the class.
That's
Everyone's
right.
kind of looking for
Yeah.
the new thing, I guess.
Yeah. It's a trend. You're right. What it comes down to, and we see the same thing with the podcast. If I do an episode on Euro nymphing, it's going to get a lot of traction because people are just interested and it's just a hot topic,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so you guys have all that. So you have plenty of Euro nymph style flies like the Perdigon and
Yes.
other ones. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So that's a few flies, like we said, dries, nymphs. And if we're going back to, the Idaho or wherever, we're saying summer, you got stoneflies, mayflies, casts. So out of all these flies you just mentioned, are you trying to get down to specifically matching those to that hatch? Let's say it was a stonefly. So if there's a stonefly hatch, you would be going with the stimulator, I guess, right? Is that kind of how you're breaking things out?
Yeah. Yeah. Or an actual salmon fly pattern. The
Yeah.
salmon fly hatch is a huge deal around here.
Yeah.
And it's a huge deal on the South Fork of the Snake River. It's a huge deal on the Madison. Even here in people want to fish the big bugs. So yeah, we have a bunch of different fluttering salmon flies, stone flies, and yeah, you got to match the hatch. You got to find a bug that's really going to mimic that. So yeah, so within that core group of classic flies that kind of cover a lot of bases, then as you go from there, now you start talking about matching the hatch and paying attention to what's on the water and just being a
Mm-hmm.
student of the river and trying to create bugs that really match them. So, for example, the blueing olive hatch on the Green River in Utah, it's a huge hatch in April every year. And the fish can get really finicky, really finicky. They get really educated. So I got to have 10 or 12 different types of bluing olive patterns with me when I go to really
Mm.
dial in the one that
Yep.
they want, because they'll refuse for
Yeah.
sure.
So you got different like sizes, colors. What would those different patterns look like?
Yeah, so you'd have a standard blooming olive. You have a thorax style that might sit right a little bit lower. We might have an emerger pattern that is on a scud hook that might have the body down into the surface film a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A small RS2 that might ride in the surface film. Even a parachute where we can see it a little bit better. So we're always changing up our tactics. Tandem flies, two flies at the same time. Maybe I'll put a high-vis parachute on first and a really small, even a nymph, like a floating nymph, just under the surface. Play with all that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
until we can kind of dial it in and get them to bite.
Right. Get them to take something. Is
Yeah.
that when you think of, somebody newer to it, they're out there, they've got I think that's where getting the standard flies, right? Get us a few patterns that are pretty standard, like we've talked about here, maybe in certain specific sizes, right? If it's a Adams, maybe you're getting, I don't know, a 14, 16, 18, whatever that is. And then you kind of get those as you start, and then you kind of learn, and then you start to expand. And maybe that's why getting into fly tying is so kind of a cool, because you can actually tie your own patterns and you don't have to buy all these patterns. Because you're talking, if you have, like, for example, the Adams, how many different sizes might you use for an Adams parachute?
Well, we sell sizes 10s to 20s.
Right. That's a lot.
So a 10, that's a big old Adams.
That's huge.
And
Dang, what is a
he's-
10? What's a 10 imitating? Is that just a big...
like a green drake or
Yeah.
a gray drake or
Wow.
just a big attractor too. I mean,
Yep.
that's a big old dry fly, but that fly's been around for a century and
Wow.
it's catches fish. So yeah, so to fish a
But-
big one of that, it would have to be some sort of drake or
Drake, yeah.
you'd be surprised though, in some of these fast tumbly waters where attractors work, they'll eat a big bug,
Yeah.
bug like that drifting by, bobbing in the water.
Right, they will. Well, let's go down this. So we talked that. Let's go back to the elk hair, because I think the elk hair I love because it's caddis. I always love talking caddis for some reason. I feel like sometimes it's been a struggle for me. But on the elk hair, how small and how big might you have a selection of elk hairs?
Yeah, so we carry sizes 12s to 18s.
Yeah, 12 to 18s.
So
Yeah.
I tell people most trout flies are 14, 16s.
Yeah, 14, 16s. That's your
If you were to
average.
take really narrow down sizes,
Yep.
and try to pick two sizes, 14, 16s is about right for just about any trout fly when you
Yeah.
start talking dries and nymphs.
Oh, it is.
Then you can go a little smaller as depending on where you're at. If you're not really catching fish, you could go a little bigger. So I use the example of the Green River. Well, if you took the Green River in Utah and the Madison River in Montana, I generally fish bigger nymphs on the Madison, and
Hmm.
I fish tiny nymphs on the Green. The
Hmm.
Green's, deeper runs, super clear
Mm.
water,
Yep.
finicky fish. The Madison's more shallow. It's got more stonefly. It's got more rocks, tumbly water.
Hmm.
So I'll use weighted bigger nymphs up there. Down on the Green, I'll use unweighted tiny nymphs. And it's just a matter of they're two different types of
Yeah.
rivers. That's where, so I change up my tactics of flies completely between those two rivers. But for a good cross section of trout flies, I would say 15s and 16s are the
Yeah.
most common
That's a
size.
good comment. So that actually is nice to narrow it down. So you can look at all these flies, say, if you're going to pick two, 14, 16, that kind of covers you. And then you can go bigger or smaller. What about on the grasshopper? That one definitely, there's some unique ones, right? Because the grasshopper is, what would be same thing on those, or what would be your size range on those?
Those are going to be obviously a little bit bigger bugs. So eights to tens.
Yeah, down to eights.
Eights to tens. So for example, we sell Dave's hoppers. We sell a size 6, eights, tens, and 12s. We have four
Yeah.
sizes. So
Yep.
6 is a pretty big bug, pretty big
Yep.
hopper. That's getting
Yeah,
close
six
to your
is good.
pinky.
You're getting into steelhead fly size in the 6 range.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
fishing hoppers is a lot of fun. Especially for beginners. You're fishing a big fly, you can see really well. You can plop it. The more you plop
Yep.
it, the better.
Okay.
And it's just so fun watching a fish charge a hopper.
Yeah, the hoppers. When is that hoppers is kind of summer, like
Yep,
midsummer?
yep. August,
Yeah.
September.
Yeah. August, September. Okay. And then stoneflies we mentioned, the Adams. And then what about the wolf? The wolf is more of just a tractor, is not really imitating anything.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fly, Royal
Yeah.
Wulff. I
Yeah,
mean,
Royal Wulff. It's
that's
got the big white post. It's got a peacock. Is it peacock and red body?
yep, and
Yeah.
either a moose tail or elk hair for the tail. It's a high floater, and I will tell you, it's that classic fly you see on the t-shirts and everything like
Yep.
that. But it actually is effective,
Yeah, it
especially if you're
works.
fishing tumbly water. Tumbly water, those two white wings, those are like little headlights going down the river, so you can really pick up that fly on the water
Right.
with those wolf wings. And I find myself, I carry a few wolves, gray wolves, Royal Wulffs in my box all the time.
Yep.
There was one time that brings to mind. I was over in Montana, or excuse me, Wyoming, upper northern Wyoming. I was in unfamiliar river, got up there, and there was like a big green drake hatch or flavs on this smaller river. I didn't have one in my box. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a green drake pattern. I was
Nope.
not expecting it. And I'm like, man, these big drakes are hatching. But all I had was Royal Wulffs, and the Royal Wulff worked beautifully
It did.
in that green drake hatch
Wow. And
in
was
this
that a
small river.
bigger, what size?
Yeah,
Like
like
a,
like a 10, 12,
yeah, 10.
something. It was in my box. I hadn't fished it for
Yep.
years, and it saved me
Right.
that day.
Yeah, it did. And that was a Royal Wulff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had a similar, I think I mentioned this before, but when we were fishing in Virginia, same thing, the big giant fish that wouldn't take anything. I put on a Royal Wulff and it took. It took this
yeah,
Royal Wulff and that was in a spring creek. It
yeah.
was pretty crazy. So there's something about it. I don't know if it's the peacock or the white posts or whatever, or something different
Silhouette.
maybe.
Has a good
Silhouette, yeah.
silhouette. My dad used to tell me stories too on the Madison River back in the 70s. He's like, man, we used to come up here and just fish Royal Wulffs in the summer and
Yeah.
just fish in all the current seams. And he goes, we tie on a big old Royal Wulff and just let it bob
Just
around
go.
and along on the current. Yeah. So,
Yeah, so it's a good one. Okay, well, again, the traditional flies are amazing. I think having the old school patterns are great. So that touches us a little bit on size. What about nymphs? You said 14, 16. So same thing if you get a copper john or a hare's ear in the 14, is that your average size range too?
yeah, that's the most popular 14, 16. That'll cover a lot of bases. I tend to find myself probably going a little smaller on nymphs most of the time. I might fish more in the 16, 18
Yep.
range.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it better to go smaller on nymphs? Like if you have a hat, let's just say you see a bug on the water. I mean, I guess nymphs are kind of hard, right? Seeing a bug, but do you go smaller than the bug that you think they're eating, or do you go larger to stand? You know what I
I would
mean?
tend to go smaller
Smaller, yeah.
always.
Go smaller.
Yeah. I just, especially fish are shying away from stuff. I always will just downsize
Yeah,
a little bit.
downsize.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep. Okay. That's that. So that's good there. And then As far as, so we got a few patterns. Again, there's your intro patterns if people are new to it. What about materials? So if somebody's getting into fly tying, talk about that. There's definitely people that are listening now that are fly ties, but there's some people that maybe aren't into it yet.
Mm.
Should they get? They have your boxes they can get, but as far as if they were just kind of getting into materials, is there a good intro?
Yeah, I would say, you know, the materials are endless, so broad on what you can get for fly tying, and that's the beauty of fly tying. You can use just about anything. You can
Right.
find it at a craft store. So it can be overwhelming to people when they start saying, "Well, I just don't even know where to start."
Yep.
I would say this: pick a pattern, a fly that you really like, that you really want to
Right.
learn. Let's say
Yep.
you took a class and they're fishing woolly buggers. That's the first fly I learned how to tie.
Yep.
Start there. Just get the
Yeah.
materials for that fly and just really try to master that fly.
Yeah.
And materials will go a long ways. A lot of those materials of a woolly bugger are going to cross over into other patterns as you move on. And that's kind of how you start building maybe a collection of materials. Next thing you know, you've got a little stash. You can use that marabou for this fly. You can use that
Yep.
chenille for this other fly. And instead of trying to just go out and just buy a bunch of stuff, just choose a pattern that you're really interested in, you really like. There's so many videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
and just master that fly. And don't get overwhelmed with there's a million hooks and hook lengths and
Right.
gaps
Hook
and all this
styles
kind of
and
stuff.
everything. Yeah.
Just get some standard stuff, and then you'll get familiar, and from there you'll kind of know, oh, this one's 3x long, it's a little bit longer hook
Yep.
shank.
Yep.
This one's 2x strong, oh, it's a little thicker, I can see how it's different than my other hooks. That's what I would recommend, is just start there. I think I tied woolly buggers and elk hair caddis. That was my childhood.
Yep.
I
Me too.
swear.
That's right. I know lots of woolly buggers, lots of. Well, we tied a tied down caddis. That was a popular fly. I tied a lot of the tied down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little. It was my dad. Again, back to the old flies. We used to fish just on the swing. So a little tied down caddis,
Oh,
which you remember, like the orange body tying down caddis was the real popular pattern. But we used to tie it with a peacock body. So
uh-huh.
basically tie. I don't even think you see the tied down caddis out there. Like that's old school.
I've never, when you said tied down, I was trying to rack my brain if I've heard that. That
Yeah,
must
maybe
be a
not even
local
heard of it.
thing.
Yeah. And this is kind of, again, I don't even know. There's probably a book that has it in there, but yeah. So it's essentially, instead of the elk hair, which is the wing is tied down on top, so it looks like it's got a case. So it's like an emerging caddis, essentially.
Oh, cool.
We'll get a link in the show notes and get a video to it. But man, we've caught a ton of flies, again, just fishing like a wet fly, casting almost like steelhead, casting out and swinging across, riffles and runs and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but again, I think that, like we said, those traditional patterns still work, even though that's, you wouldn't see
Absolutely.
that, but let's talk about on the materials again. So this is a great point. So if somebody wants to get more into fly tying, pick a pattern. You guys do that with your boxes, right? You
Yes.
have a pattern of the week or pattern of the month, and then you can get all the materials that go with it, which is a great way to do it.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. Okay. What about like material wise? Go a little deeper into materials. Synthetic. You got lots of materials. Synthetics. You got naturals. What's your take on that? Is that something where they're equal? You need both when people start selecting materials, or I guess, do you tie with both equally?
Yeah, I tie with both equally, and I don't get hung up in, oh, it has to be all natural or
Yeah.
it has to be all synthetic or whatever. I'm just whatever I'm trying to create, whatever I'm working on. You learn something every time you're on the river, and I still say that. When I come home, I'm like, oh man, I ought to make that fly a little different, or I ought to change it a little bit. And so there's a ton of great materials. Lots of synthetics have come on the market
Yep.
over the last few years. Lots of different flashes and chenilles and all kinds of stuff. So we'll
Yeah.
use a bit of anything, and I like to experiment with all of that myself. Obviously, the naturals. There's not much more naturals you can create.
Right.
But if you
Yeah.
can find a good deer hair, a good patch of elk hair, CDC, obviously Whiting Farms hackle if you're fishing dry flies.
Yep.
You need some good rooster saddle.
Mm-hmm.
Peacock is still peacock. We haven't
Yeah.
gotten away from peacock. That catches fish. So a lot of flies need peacock. So a good mix of both. You can construct about anything, whatever your imagination.
Yeah. If somebody went to your site now and they wanted to get some, a material box, do you guys also do that where you have a selection of maybe flies and size, or do you think it's better just to pick that one, get a box for that one, and then do that and then go to the next fly?
Yeah, I mean, our Smitty's fly box was built on the idea of this idea. I teach the Utah State fly tying classes. So
Yeah.
we have a beginner fly tying class and an intermediate fly tying class. And all the students, after class was over, they were like, "Hey, like, how do I get materials for that pattern? I
Right.
want to do some Elk Hair Caddis." So that's where the idea was born. I was like, let's just put it together for them
Yeah.
instead of having them having to, oh, here's a list, go buy it
Right.
all.
And search, then also searching like, hey, I got to get good deer hair and all that stuff, right? I got to pick. Yeah.
Exactly. It's all picked out for you. We
Right.
already do that. And so that's what our website, it starts there. Now we sell all kinds of synthetics and natural materials. If you key in on something you really like, a material you're going to need it all the time, then get a big bag of it.
Yeah.
Then get a full patch of elk hair. Then you can go from there. So we do both, but Smitty's Fly Box was built on that notion of helping people just get a
Just get
bundle.
going. Just
Yep.
take that work, especially for somebody new to it, take the guesswork out of it and just say, here you go, get started. And then you have videos on, is this on YouTube where people can see videos
Yes.
of, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. This is great. So, and I think that's really important. I think that another thing, a struggle for fly tires is like durability in flies, or right. That's one big thing. Do you have a few tips on somebody if they're tying, they're getting into this, but maybe their flies are coming apart? How do you make a durable fly? What's that look like?
Well, obviously you need a little bit of glue, a little bit of
Yeah.
super glue or UV glue.
Yep.
Then understanding and learning thread tension, thread wraps,
Yep.
attaching materials, little tips and tricks. Obviously foam flies are going to twist around your hook
Yep.
a little bit. So understanding that thread tension and applying glue in different spots, are good things. Head cement, that's the key. Choosing the right thread. If
Yep.
you use kind of flossy big thread, for materials might slip out
Exactly. There
here
is a
and
lot
there.
to it, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of, but again, I think like you're saying, watch the video, watch a video, and that's probably, and find somebody who knows what they're doing and just kind of
Yeah.
copy that system.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Now we used to have to sit there and try to look at a book back
I
in the
know.
day.
I know. Exactly. Are you doing and so are you doing the videos, or who's doing, because you guys have
I'm
these
doing them.
Yeah, you're doing them. So the videos that go, do they go out each week with a new video?
Yeah. So I post a new fly tying reel every week on our Instagram,
Yep.
and then we do our monthly boxes every month. Those two videos will go on. Those are more like 20 minutes
Yep.
videos. And then we do for the fly of the week, we just do a quick tie. It's like a 1 minute quick video.
Like a fast.
It's a really quick sped up one. So
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, you do that. So if somebody wanted to follow and get the step by step, they could look at the quip video, but you also have some stuff on YouTube where they can kind of, I go back to the stimulator because I think part of that is because you got to have really good hackle, but that's always been a struggle for me, right? But if they wanted to learn, say, a stimulator, how to tie that fly, do you have a video that walks them through all those steps on that?
yes. So if we chose a stimulator as one of our monthly box flies, I would do about a 20-minute video and I would really explain it. I'd be talking and explain it and show them the proportions and the size of the hackle and how
everything.
much elk hair to use and how
Yep.
to avoid some of the pitfalls of that fly, and really go in depth. This last week, we chose a stimulator as our fly of the week, and I just did a quick one. I didn't
Yeah.
talk on that one. I just showed it,
Yeah.
and kind of pointed what materials went where.
Yeah.
It's more geared to just a quick.
Is that fly
quick lesson.
easy? Is that fly just easy for you?
No, I wouldn't say easy.
Because it takes a lot of, right? A lot of hackle. There's a lot of,
There's a lot going on that.
yeah.
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 I just think over the years, just doing it, it took me a long time. I'm trying to remember the first few times that you use a stimulator,
Yeah.
talk about tying a stimulator. Yeah, like anything, it takes a lot of
Takes time.
practice and there's little nuances to that fly. If you use too much elk hair, not enough elk hair.
Exactly.
You got to learn proportions on your hook. If you take the abdomen too far to the front, well, then all of a sudden you don't have room to do your thorax part of it. So you start marking parts of your hook to get the proportions right. And you might take you a dozen flies till you get that right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that is the challenge. So, and that's part of the proportions, right? How do you get the proportions right? I guess, what is your recommendation? Is it kind of less is more on the proportions, or what's
Yeah,
your
and
tip there?
I usually I break flies up into parts.
Okay.
So again, the stimulator, you have the abdomen and you have the thorax. Well, there's a 2/3 spot right on the hook shank. When I start tying that fly, when I attach my thread, I kind of mark that
Oh, yeah.
spot,
Yeah.
and that helps me work on the back, the abdomen, and I try make sure I keep that abdomen within that space, and then I reserve the front third of the hook for the thorax, and that helps me just kind of piece that fly together: tail, abdomen, wing,
Yep.
thorax. And I'm thinking through that the whole way. And it's really for all flies that way. If I'm going to tie a traditional dry fly like an Adams, well, you have your tail,
Mhm.
body or abdomen, and then you have the hackle on the wing at the top. So as you
Yep.
start tying flies, they're all kind of the same. The techniques are the same. We're just changing up materials. So if I can tie an Adams, well, I can tie a PMD, I can tie a blue. We're just
Right.
changing colors and sizes. A stimulator is unique. It's kind of like a souped up Elk Hair Caddis because we
Yep.
have a couple more sections, but really a lot of the techniques we do in an Elk Hair Caddis are going to apply
Mm.
to a
Mhm.
stimulator. And the
Yep.
same thing with nymphs. When you start tying hare's ears and pheasant tails, well, those proportions are the same: the
Yep.
tail, abdomen, thorax, wing case. So I
Right.
got to mark those spots on my hook and keep those proportions right. And over time, it just becomes second nature. You kind of understand where to
Yep.
stop and start certain things.
Right, that's right. What about a midge? That one's a little bit different. Is that a easy one to tie?
Yeah, a zebra midge is the
Yeah,
easiest fly to tie.
it is. Yeah, easy. Yeah, right. Easier than the woolly bugger.
That fly has the most bang for its buck. You can crank them out and you can catch a lot of fish on those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just a bead, hook, and wire and
Right.
thread.
Are those your top, the flies you mentioned? We talked about the dries, the dimps. Are those also your kind of confidence favorite patterns, or do you have some other ones you'd add to that list?
That's a good question. I would say my confidence flies right now are a quill perdigon, a gunslinger. That's always
Gunslinger.
been for a nymph.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one other one that I've been fishing a lot around here is a balanced leech
Oh, and the balance for lakes or for
and rivers.
and rivers. Cool.
And rivers, yes. I find myself, we fish it a lot, like on Henry's Lake. It's really big up there, and a lot of
Yeah.
the reservoirs down here in southern Idaho. It works well. But we started fishing them as we drift in the drift boat, say on the South Fork of the Snake River. It's a very simple rig: strike indicator, straight leader to your
Yep.
balanced leech.
That's it.
That thing gets down, and with that indicator, it
Yeah.
doesn't need the indicator creates the movement, and that thing just
Right.
crawls up over rocks, and
And it's
it's
imitating what, like a what?
like a little bait fish or a leech or a wounded
Yeah.
minnow or
Right.
something. So I'll use different colors.
Yeah.
If I'm fishing it like a streamer in the river, I like grays and whites and silvers. A bruise balance leech, which is black with a little purple, and that's very popular.
Hmm.
But we that's been a very effective fly over the last little while, and we sell a
Amazing.
ton of those things.
Yeah, bounce leech.
That's
And
one
the
of our top
fly,
selling flies.
it is, and the hook is the unique thing, right? In the balance. Well, the hook and the balance. How do you is that for somebody that hasn't tied one of those or maybe even
Yeah.
seen it? What is that balance leech?
All it is we use a jig style hook. So
Yep.
the eye is
On the
you know,
off the tip or whatever the tip or however.
yep.
Yeah.
And we just use these sewing needles. We cut a sewing needle and we actually put the bead onto the sewing needle
Yep.
and tie that needle into the top. So the actual eye of the hook is sticking out kind of in the
Under.
center
Yeah. In the
center of the
center. Kind of center.
fly. So if this is your hook shank, the eye is going to be right in here. And so now you have your leader going straight up. And
Yep.
so that fly kind of rides balance like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So we're not really actively stripping it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that,
You could do
but
that.
it's more just a balance
Right.
bob along like
Right in
that.
the zone.
And it's been really effective. And we put a tungsten bead on it, so it'll get
Gets
down
down.
quick. And it's that same concept I was talking about earlier with fishing a dry dropper. It gets down, it gets vertical. You've got a nice drift with your strike indicator. And if you're fishing any sort of choppy water, any sort of movement on that indicator up top is creating the movement on the
Yep.
balance leech along the bottom. So I like that fly. That's been a real confidence fly
Mm-hmm.
over the last few years as well.
Okay, cool. And that's balance leash, and I guess that's kind of in towards a little bigger, more like almost like a streamer, right? Are there any? Are you
Yes.
guys selling some streamer patterns out there?
Yep. You have your typical streamers. You've got, your articulated streamers that are still have a spot. They're very popular. Honestly, a good zonker
Yeah,
is
zonker.
about as good a streamer as there is
Yep.
still to
Yep.
this day. I'll fish zonkers quite a bit. I like a white zonker. I like just a natural colored zonker.
Yeah, and a zonker
And
is
then,
just a big rabbit strip, right?
yep,
Pretty
rabbit
much.
strip and a mylar body. Looks like a little
Mylar.
fish.
Yep.
And they work very
What
well.
what sizes are you fishing those in? What's your
Fours.
average? 4, yeah, big. So 4s, and you might go a little smaller, 6s, 8s, or maybe it's bigger?
Yeah, we just make them in fours.
Oh, just 4s.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then there's a lot of, there's a lot of different streamer patterns that anything that looks cool, streamers they're going to have some sort of weight a little bit on the head, whether it's a cone head or dumbbell eyes, things like that. That weight's going to help it get down and get some
Yep.
action. And then most streamers have some sort of combination of a marabou or rabbit hair
Yep.
to really make it swim.
Yep. Pretty standard. So
Yep.
Okay. Well, and anything else we're missing here? If we're going to line this again, some of these flies, we have quite a few here. Some of your, I guess it's a mixture, confidence flies and some starter flies to get people going here. Any other patterns we'd throw on this list if we're going to give somebody our little top 10 or so today?
Top tens. Well, okay, back to the classics. A good selection of zebra midges are great in the winter months.
Okay.
There's lots of variations of zebra midges that also work. You have, black beauties and miracle midges and all that. They're all variations of the old zebra midge. That still works. It's hard to beat a San Juan worm
Oh, the San Juan.
in the spring. I mean, say what you want, they catch fish.
Yep.
And they're
Yep.
very simple to tie. If you just got your first vise and you want to tie a fly and you just want to kind of learn the thread, just try to do a San Juan worm.
Yep.
That's a great one to start.
Yep.
And that's going to catch fish. You're gonna need some San Juan worms in your box. Now, if you go to again back to dry flies, some other ones I like for a dry dropper. My favorite dry fly for a dropper is a chernubby.
Yeah. Oh, Chernubby.
I call it a chernubby. It's just a small, chubby Chernobyl.
Yep.
It just floats really good.
Foam and yep.
And it's got little legs on it. It's a
Yep.
great fly for a dry dropper. It casts very easy. I like it better than a regular chubby. Some of the chubbies are too big.
Too big,
feel
right?
like
Yeah.
I like to just a nice, softer one. Let me think here. Chernubbies for nymphs. I like gunslingers. I like, again, any of the Perdigons. There's a fly called a Slim Jim that I really like. It's a Euro style tungsten. There's one called a roughneck that I really like. It's kind of a zebra style with the tungsten. That's a very good fly. For dry flies, I find myself fishing, again, I'm pretty traditional. I fish a lot of Elk Hair Caddis Stimulators. I fish a lot of like purple haze.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fly called a fatal attractor when you started talking about Royal Wulffs.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my patterns. And that was built as just a big, ugly attractor fly.
Yep.
I'll fish that in the summer when I want to just fish something big and fluffy.
Yep. And what is that doing? Is that just that's just an attractor? You're
Just an
literally
attractor.
just getting their attention.
Yep. Just something
And
big.
they'll take it and they'll eat it just because they're fish and they want to check
Yep.
it out.
Yep.
Yeah. That's it. That's awesome.
Who knows why they want to eat certain things?
That's awesome. Well, we got a good list here. This is awesome. And the flies we talked about here, we'll put a summary in the show notes so people can take a look at that. So with all these fish on, say, your Logan area, your local, are all these pretty good for, throughout the year?
Yeah. Those are great flies, just depending on the time of the year. But our main fishing season, those would work just about anywhere up here.
Yeah. Maybe it might have to adjust the size or whatever, depending on what's going on. Okay. Perfect. Well, I think that gives us a good start there. Talk about these flies, because we talked about this on the last podcast. You are not only tying for Smitty's, but you're still tying for a larger organization, right? Are you still tying all the flies at Sportsman's?
Yeah. So our main family business is Round Rocks flies. We've done that for 30 years. That's still our main bread and butter. So we supply a lot of sporting goods stores, fly shops. You mentioned Sportsman's Warehouse, great relationship with them. We sell a lot of flies through those guys. They're local here in Utah based. We're Utah based. So that's worked well. We've been doing that for 30 years. So yeah, we're still doing that, cranking a lot of flies out.
I got a little story to tell you. I didn't mention this before, but this is a cool one. We were on our way, a family road trip. We were doing this thing and I had my kids and they know how to fish the cast, but they haven't been totally into it fully. But we got out on this little creek and it was really cool because we got in late. It was like a late road trip. And the only thing that was open was Sportsman's, so we swung by Sportsman's on our way down halfway and went in there in their fly box and we grabbed a bunch of flies. And I think, what did we get in there? We got We got Craig Matthews has a pattern called it's got a shuck. It's like the X Caddis.
X Caddis, yeah.
X Caddis, right? And I'm sure you have something like that, but
Yeah.
we grab some of those and a little mixture. Anyways, we get down the stream and we get on this thing and we get a little hatch going on. And both my kids got these massive trout. It was pretty cool. And
that's awesome.
but right. And so they were on, I mean, obviously we caught them on some other flies too, but they're on your flies. And it was just cool because like after that moment, they were totally into it. Like one of my daughters was like, all right, I got to get the new vest and I got to get all this stuff.
Yeah.
So she's totally stoked. But yeah, I mean, your patterns, they're good, solid patterns. This is like high quality. Talk about how have you gotten to that just because you've been doing it so long, right? These are not, because sometimes you hear stories about flies that maybe fall apart, that aren't that great. Talk about your flies. You guys have been doing this a while, right?
Been doing it a long time, pretty much my whole life. Again, quick, long story short, but yeah, my dad and I started this business 93, 94. And so, yeah, the production, we control all the production, all the materials come to our warehouse here in Logan first. We design all the patterns, we tie all the samples, we control the factories where they're tied at. So we have a lot of control over that production side of things and just keep a close eye on it. We're still, like I said, small family business, tight knit. All the hooks are very well made hooks from Japan, Whiting Farms hackle. So we're not cutting corners on any of the materials that we're using and just do our best really to make a good fly so that's what it's all about. So people like yourself can take your kids out.
Exactly.
Go up to a river and catch a fish. I mean, that's
have a story.
That's our mission right there. If we had a mission statement,
it
would be that. Dave takes his daughter and gets a caddisfly and catches a bunch of nice fish.
Exactly.
That's all we want.
It was, yeah. It was one of those amazing moments and stuff. So that's cool, yeah. And I think that, and again, that's what's awesome about everything you have going because the quality of flies that you're selling, again, they're high quality flies. So this is going to be, not just your boxes, but everything you guys have there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Well, any other flies we're missing here when we put together this little summary? Does this sound like we've covered the bulk? Again, for somebody new to it, maybe they need that trout selection. They want to go pick any other flies we want to throw on there. I think we've covered a decent amount.
I think that was a pretty good selection there. So that should get anyone started.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Cool, Steve. Well, let's take it out of here. This is kind of our Wet Fly Swing Pro segment we've been doing with our community, trying to connect with people in there. And we've been building trips, heading around the country. We're just getting ready now we're heading to Newfoundland for the first time for Atlantic salmon, but we're also going to be in Montana this year. We're going to be probably near you. I think we're going to probably fish maybe the Teton River, some of that stuff. These flies we talked about here are great, but what do you have on your list? Are you ever thinking, I know you're a busy guy, are you thinking about getting out any places you want to get to on your bucket list?
I have a lot of places I would like to go. Right now, I don't have anything on my radar. Like I said, where I live, it's really nice because within a 4-hour drive, I can hit some of the best water in North America. So
you're in the
I find myself day trip in any direction.
Yeah.
And I still love to fish a lot of these waters, but I'll get something on my radar. I do need to expand past that 4-hour
Have you
radius.
thought about the one thing you always hear, the saltwater people start getting into saltwater? Are you doing now saltwater? Do you cover some saltwater flies?
We do have saltwater flies. Yeah. Yes. I've done a little bit of bone fishing and red fishing myself.
Okay.
And I would like to do that again.
Yeah.
I did some red fish in Louisiana. It was a ton of fun. I've done that. I've done my last bonefish trip. I was actually in Hawaii.
Oh, there you go.
I think I mentioned that last time I was here. People don't know there's some actually good bone fishing in Honolulu.
Yeah, big bonefish, right?
Big bonefish down there. So you might want to research that if you're down there on a family trip. You can go a half-day trip very easy and catch some big bonefish.
Yeah. We've got a guest coming up from Hawaii. Actually, we already had an episode we did on Oahu, and we're going to be doing another one because there's another island out there a lot of people don't know about. It's more of the native island that's really protected. A lot of people don't fly to it. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but there is a Hawaiian island, and our guest actually guides. He's a native Hawaiian, and he is going to take us on that trip.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, not physically yet, but we're going to go through it with the podcast and hear about it. But it sounds like, there's some good places. What is bonefish, if you can remember, like bonefish or even redfish, how does that compare to catching a big brown trout on one of your streams locally?
Wow, that's a great question. Catching a trophy brown trout up here is still a thrill.
Yeah.
And I think because they're pretty elusive and they're difficult. It's difficult to catch a 22, 23, 24-inch brown. It really is. So when you do, man, there's a lot of satisfaction to that. So
Yep.
I just, it's hard to compare, they're just,
Yeah. Right. Totally
I
different.
I think this is more of a hunting thing for me around here, and so I'm constantly working and trying. When I go on a trip somewhere, I'm kind of on vacation. The
Yeah.
guy takes me, he takes me to where they are, and
Right.
I mean, it's a thrill and it's awesome, and everyone should do it.
Yeah. Yep.
But I kind of like the challenge of working some of these waters and trying to catch a 23,
Yep.
24-inch brown.
That's cool. Yeah, it's totally different, right? It's like, it's the hunt, but it's just like that. That's why the trout fishing is so cool, because there's all this deep dive you can take, right? You can go in, like we said, into the mayfly and the life history of these mayflies, and you can get as nerdy as you want to get. I feel like that's why trout fishing still is the main thing people do, because it's kind of what everybody knows, but it's also super. And all these books have been written about trout flies and tying, and right, it seems pretty amazing, right? I've heard stories that there's more books written about fly fishing than like all other sports combined, or something like that, right?
Wow, I believe it. I believe it. And there's just so much. And I mentioned earlier, you learn something every time. And once you get down that rabbit hole, we're always adjusting, we're always learning.
Yeah,
And I'm always like, I know there's a big fish in there. I know
yeah,
there is.
it's there.
I got to figure out how to catch that thing,
Yeah,
whatever it's going to take. And that's how we grow as anglers. And that's how the sport grows, is that constant pursuit of that 24-inch brown.
yep. And the way we're going to get there is to have support. Even though doing it on your own is great because you do learn a lot, you got to have some support along the way. That's why we're here, and that's why you're doing what you do. I think everybody kind of in the industry, right, is like you said, that moment of getting your daughter or your kid out for a trophy fish and being there to take that photo,
Yeah.
or just be there to witness it, right, is amazing.
And I find myself, though, too, honestly, this day and age, we're so connected with our phones and we're on
Yeah,
our computers and this and that.
I know.
If I can just get up on that river, the Logan River, and I can catch a 12-inch Bonneville
Yeah,
cutthroat trout on a Elk Hair Caddis in an evening, I can catch 5 or 6 of them.
yep,
I don't know what else I want. That to me, the older I get, I appreciate that more and more. And just being able to be in the river and there's fish still there, and
right.
we can still catch them. And that still means a lot to me, actually.
Yep, definitely. Cool. All right, Steve. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it today. We'll send everybody out, like we said, to smittysflybox.com if they want to connect on anything we talked about here. And you're there, right? If we have questions for anything, they can send you emails, connect with you there.
Anytime. Yep. Shoot me an email.
Okay. All right, Steve. Well, until the next one, thanks for all the time today, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Have a great one.